And we're back with Your World. My name is Olive Burrows. I'm sitting in for Winnie Lubembe on this Tuesday morning. And with me in studio, we have Dr. Julius Kirimi Itunga, Acting Chief Executive Officer of the Water Services Regulatory Board. Good to have you in studio this morning. Also with us in studio, we have Dr. Lorraine Kemunto, Medical Officer, Hospital. And I will ask her to explain whether, I thought it was a spelling error. It turns out it is not. So she'll tell us what that is about. But what we are discussing this morning is the impact of illegal water connection. Now, for a lot of us, will you allow me to call you Dr. Julius, if that's okay? It's fine, great. So, for a lot of us, when we think of water, we think of Nairobi Water and Sewerage Company or Athi River Water, or, what role, where does WASREB come in?
Thank you, Riv. WASREB is the regulator of the water service providers in Kenya. It's a national regulator established through the Water Act 2016. And the main object is to protect the interests and rights of consumers while taking care of the other stakeholders in the water service provision value chain.
All right, so you're like the equivalent of EPRA?
Yes, I can say we are equivalent of EPRA, we are equivalent of CA, any other utility regulator that you can think about in Kenya.
All right, so when you're talking about protecting the consumer and also taking on board the concerns of the stakeholders, what does that entail essentially in terms of your functions?
Essentially, our function or our mandate is provided for in the Water Act 2016, that is section 72. And mainly what we do is we set standards for water service provision at the national level, and we also license water service providers. We monitor for compliance to standards and enforce the standards as per the license conditions.
All right, so when you talk about standards, you also talk about the safety of the water?
Yes, water quality. We talk about tariffs. We talk about hours of service, and so on and so forth.
Aha, interesting. I'd really like to get more into that. But as I mentioned, we also have in studio another doctor, medical doctor or PhD doctor? First of all, Dr. Julius.
PhD.
PhD.
Yes.
All right. Now we have a medical doctor in studio, Dr. Lorraine Kemunto, Medical Officer, Hospital.
Yes.
I'm ashamed to say I'm not too familiar with the hospital.
And I get that a lot. First of all, thank you for having me here. It's hospital, it's not a typo, it's not a spelling error. Basically coined from two words, which you're very familiar with. So house and hospital, basically, yeah. So in a nutshell, it will just be bringing the hospital to your house or hospital at your home. Yeah, so what we mainly deal with is bringing the medical professional services, which you would normally get at a physical hospital, to your home, at the comfort of your home. So anything and everything which is possible. Usually what might now require referral to a physical place will be ICU care or theater services, but for most of the other services, we find that it's usually possible to deliver at your home.
Okay.
So that's what we deal with, basically.
So
it's a branch of telemedicine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So is there an app?
We do have a website. We have a contact number, which you can reach us at any time on 0713 749 001. Anytime, 24-hour service. Once you call, you can chat on WhatsApp, which is even easier to access, and you'll get someone for any service, really. Anything and everything we offer, from doctor consultations to specialist consultations. We do lab sample collections, and we'll send you the results. We also do medicine delivery. We have 24-hour nursing care. We can also do imaging, so we can come and do your ultrasound at your home, portable X-ray if possible. And if you need the advanced ones like MRI, CT, we now refer you to our partners, because those ones are not safe to do at your home. But we do essentially everything.
Interesting. Really. Interesting. Yeah. Dr. Julius, you had mentioned something akin to hours of service.
Yes.
What a connection in this city, because I will speak to the city because I live here. It's a big issue, especially in informal settlements. I was moderating a forum and I was listening, so it was a women's conference, and some of the women were like, why does Lavington get water and Kawangwere does not get water? You know, issues such as that, issues of I remember which I think it was Nairobi Water, which was explaining that, you know, if you're in the same pipe as a hospital, it's a pipe, right? As a system, as a hospital or military facility, you're more likely to get water more days in a week than one that is, or that a person who is not within the same, you know, connection. So is that something you regulate as well in terms of who gets water when, or is this strictly up to the water service providers?
Thank you, Arif. Good question. As I didn't mention, we monitor. The ideal situation is a 24/7 situation where every Kenyan has access to water as to when he or she requires it. However, due to scarcity of water, in various parts of our country, and due to rapid development, we've not been able to, you know, to provide water 24/7. So universal access is the ideal situation where everybody would get water when they require it. However, in the water situation in the country, we producing approximately 450 million cubic meters of water per year, whereas the requirement is about 800 million cube. So you can see there is a shortage, a huge gap,
yes,
of almost 55%. So that now results into what we call rationing. Rationing is basically, you know, effected to ensure that at least each and every person gets access to some water sometime, not the 24/7 the way it is envisaged. And therefore, the water companies are under obligation to ensure that at least every person within their service area, because in their license condition, they are assigned service areas. Like within the city of Nairobi, the Nairobi City Water and Sewerage Company is responsible for water supply, water and sewerage, you know, service, to provide water and sewerage service within the city. However, you know, they are unable to meet the requirements because of the demand and supply gap. So what they do is they publish the rationing timetable so that people living in specific areas would know the days and the time they would receive the commodity. And therefore they encouraged to use it in a good way and possibly to store some for the hours that there will be no service. As you put, it is true that there are some priority areas, like the hospitals, the schools, the universities are given priority. And you mentioned also the military facilities. They are given priorities to the extent that, yeah, it might be true if you are sharing a line with let's say, Kenyatta National Hospital, you're likely to get, you know, more hours of supply than that line or, that pipeline which is serving the pure and domestic areas. However, priority is given to water for consumption, that's for domestic use. After that, to other productive areas of our economy, because we know water is an enabler to each and every aspect of our lives. But first and foremost, life. Water for drinking, water for cooking, water for bathing. Then the other sectors follow. We need the economy to thrive. We can't talk about affordable housing, of course, without water. We can't talk about industrial development without water. We can't talk of, sustainable health without water. So water, it's like, it's part of life. And we say water is life. Yes.
All right. I was thinking that now Langata residents know where to camp. if they feel that the rationing schedule is not fair. Yeah. But how big a problem are illegal water connections? And because we're talking about scarcity for some,
yes,
or restricted, limited access to water already on account of you talked about a shortage of about we produce what, 450 against 800,
so 350,
right? So there's a gap there already.
Yeah.
Is this exacerbated, and how big a problem are illegal water connections?
Thank you, Riv. This is the elephant in the room in this country. We lose approximately 45% of the production that I've talked about. The international standards provide for a benchmark of about 20%, but in our case as a country, we lose 45% of the water that we produce through what we refer to as non-revenue water. That is water that is not built. The water is put into the pipeline, but basically nobody knows where it ends. As I have said, the international standards allows that as you convey the commodity, you can lose about 20% through leakages, through other authorized non-revenue aspects like firefighting and so on. We don't charge for that. There are areas in case there is a fire outbreak, the fire brigade knows where they open, get the water and use it for firefighting purposes and other small activities. Those are around, within the 20% loss, and there's more leakages here and there. However, in our case, the 45% overall is quite alarming. And this one is as a result of two components, what we call the commercial losses. Commercial losses basically means that the billing does not take place for some reason, whether erroneously or there are inaccuracies in billing or deliberately through corruption. So you may be having a water connection, but you have no meter in your house. You may be having a meter, but that meter does not move, or is faulty, or you have made it faulty, or you have put a bypass, and the water service provider may not be aware of that. Of course, we don't overrule a situation where some of our agents, perpetrate it. But we have also situations where Kenyans in our quick habit, we like shortcuts. So when you quickly get somebody to fix the water for you, you don't pay for it, you are not billed. So the company continues to lose revenue. And when the company is losing revenue, it's not really the company losing revenue, it is Kenya losing revenue. It's a revenue leakage for you, for me, and for the entire economy. Because what it means is that there is somebody consuming water without paying for it. And that water must be paid for by somebody. Because for sure, like if I gave you the example of Nairobi City Water and Sewerage Company, they get their water from Ndakaine Dam in Muranga. That's where they get most of their water from. So you can imagine there is a dam which was in the first instance constructed using resources. It has to be maintained. There are staff there manning it. Then thereafter the water is transported to a treatment plant. There is a treatment plant which has been constructed. That treatment plant has to be manned. That treatment plant requires chemicals to treat water so that it is safe for human consumption. Then it is, piped through to your house. And there is somebody all the day long, 24 hours 7, doing surveillance along the pipelines to make sure that there are no leakages, that the water reaches the consumers and in good quality. It's costs. But here comes me and you. We don't want to support the company to meet those costs. We do shortcuts. We get the commodity, we consume it. I would say we consume it shamelessly. And those of us who don't pay for it are the ones who take, the big volumes because they don't feel the pain. So they would use it the way they want. And therefore, that burden is passed over to another consumer. And when it is passed over to the other consumer, it's passed over to the other consumer in terms of paying higher tariffs, in terms of getting less hours of service. Because if we were all paying that amount of money that you are denying the company, they would use it to expand and increase access to every Kenyan. So in equivalent, the 45%, once you discount it for the around ROSIS, the international benchmark of 20%, we lose approximately 113 million cubic meters per annum, which is equivalent to the water that is required like in the coast province the whole year. And it's equivalent as the prevailing tariffs, average tariffs, is equivalent to 10.5 billion Kenya shillings per year. So it's like we are stealing from ourselves and our brothers and sisters 10 billion Kenya shillings every year through water losses. And as a regulator, we are not taking this rightly. We've come up with action programs to ensure that this comes to an end and that we can operate within the international standards.
All right, and we'll get more into that, the programs you're talking about, because I was looking through my notes here, and I see you have a 100-day operation that's being undertaken in identified residential estates within the city and later cascaded down to the counties. And we'll get into that because I had no idea we had water police. But it turns out we have water police. When we come back from this break, I'll engage Dr. Kemunto on the public health risk of illegal water connections. And is this something that was illustrated by what we had at Sacred, I keep saying Sacred, come by me, Sacred Heart Girls Mukumu situation where water was identified, the quality of the water was identified as a problem. We'll get into all of that on the other side of this break.
and join our May 2023 intake. For more information, call us on 0701 079 406 or 0728 669 000. We have campuses in Limuru, Nairobi, and Nakuru. St. Paul's University, your university of choice.
Mtoi amepewa 3 days alipe school fees. Gadhani mara ngapi nimekuambia tupeleke mtoi shule ya gava na utaki kunisikiza. Unainsist hapo mpeleke shule ya private na hata hauna pesa. Shika.
Start your life here.
It's not enough for me. It's just not enough.
You don't know what they do to girls like you.
I think it's Avina. Cindy. That's her name.
Sorry, who is your father?
That's a couple bell.
Dad had another family. Another wife.
My skin is my identity, my strength. It's unique and deserves care made specially for me. New Nivea Radiant and Beauty Advanced Care with 5 oils and 5 vitamins. 48-hour nourishment. Helps reduce appearance of stretch marks in just 2 weeks. New Nivea Radiant and Beauty Advanced Care for your shade of beautiful.
Own your dream home for as low as 1.98 million Kenya shillings in Vipingo Kilifi. SMS Vipingo to 22365 or call us today on 0740 400 215. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back to Your World, and we are discussing illegal water connections. And actually, Dr. Julius was in the process of sending me an image of when they launched the water police. So let me just send him a quick hi on WhatsApp so that he can forward it. Have you gotten it? Great. All right, Dr. Kemunto, before we took the break, I had posed a question on quality of our water, you know, having it monitored. So do illegal connections put that at risk, public health at risk?
Okay, thank you for the question. I think without a doubt, without second thought, definitely it does have a great impact on the public health aspect, mainly because it is this water that the community will ingest, they will use in cooking, they will use in making different products, and therefore it is mandatory for people to be aware. I think it should be, at this point, maybe a self-initiative to be aware of the source of the water you're using, especially because nowadays we have so many water vendors, and I think it's because of the fact that we have water scarcity, so it's become more of a business. I think more people are venturing into it, and you know, when it comes to business, most people have their personal interests at heart, and so if you're not very vigilant, you will not know where these people that are selling to you water, that are providing or supplying you with water, where they're sourcing this water from. And you never know, most of the times might be contaminated. And just for safety purposes, I think people should be educated on the different measures that can be taken to maybe improve the quality of your water, especially if you don't know where it's coming from. The most basic, simple thing, I think it's taught at the very basic level of education, is just boiling your water. It does help. I don't know if people undermine it, but it does help. And we find that these recent outbreaks that we've been having of cholera, of rotavirus, it stems from these illegal connections, because you'll find that there are no regulatory or strict regulatory bodies or forms of checking the supply, the source of this water. So people are being supplied with water from sewages, you know, and you end up consuming this water, and it just needs one or very few people for this infection to spread, because you'll find that these waterborne diseases, they spread very easily. You just need to ingest water that was contaminated, and sometimes it's even from person to person. So just simple measures like boiling water. We even have home treatment measures nowadays, like these chemicals that chlorinate your water. Just simple measures like this. But I think at the grassroots level, we should have strict and vigilant regulatory bodies, and we should be able to track like these water vendors. Where are they? Who are they, first of all, and where are they getting this water? Who is consuming their water? So that there's a flow chart. We can easily do surveillance in case of any outbreaks and anything like that.
Oh, I really hadn't looked at it like that, of being able to trace where did this water originate and where is the problem.
Yeah.
You know, thinking behind it, because for many of us, getting access to the water is difficult enough for me before I start thinking about where it came from.
Yeah.
But so for many of us, we really boil the water we drink. Is it important to also be sure about the source of the water you're using to wash your vegetables and fruits and all of that as well?
Yes, 100%, because you're still consuming that water in a way. Because if you're using water that is contaminated, your vegetables, your fruits, they're coming into contact with this water. Those microorganisms will just translocate onto that vegetable, that fruit, and you'll end up consuming the same. So it's still as important to treat the water that we use for anything that will come into contact with our mouths. Yes.
So there's serious public health implications.
Yes.
To these illegal water connections, because I did mention a conference, and I will share the link with you, Dr. Julia. So I'm just not talking from the air. But I remember one of the women, a water vendor, and she was saying, Nairobi City water, your water is very dirty. And she was saying the problem, I think, is a pipe had been punctured and was running alongside a sewer, so that contaminated their water. And just because water looks clear, because I can see the sun on your table, so just because it looks clear, it's not guaranteed that it's uncontaminated.
Yes.
All right. So important. We have been told by Dr. Kemun to boil your water, and also be sure about the water you're using to wash your fruits and vegetables to contain outbreaks such as, because we've had the cholera outbreak, we've had fatalities. It's no joking matter. Even in the Mukumu situation, no joking matter at all. Water is serious business, and as you said, water is life, Dr. Julius. But tell us a little bit about this 100-day operation and what you've managed to uncover, right? How effective has it been?
Thank you. Maybe before I get into that, very, very quickly to support what Dr. Kemuntu has said, basically sources of water. And in early February, we put an advert calling upon every vendor in whichever part of the country they are to come out and register with the water service provider within their service area. Reason being, we want to know who is supplying water, we want to know the source of that water, and we want to know the quality of water that they are supplying to Kenyans, so that we can at least guarantee that safety, that we can be able to mitigate against that risk of contamination. We are not like after killing enterprise. We know there is a gap. And the fact that as a government, we've not been able to supply water 24/7 in the right quantities, therefore the commercial entrepreneurs came in to bridge the gap. They are doing a good job. But my appeal to them, let them respond to our call, go register, so that we can work together, support them also for sustainability of their businesses, and so that they can be operating in accordance with the provisions of the law. It is actually a criminal offense, to deal with water business without a business permit in this country. like any other business. You can't decide that today you wake up and open a business without the relevant authorizations. And therefore, even those who are dealing with water without relevant authorizations, let them know that they are committing an offense under the Water Act, and they risk actually, once found, to be fined Kenya shillings 2 million shillings or be sent to jail.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah,
a lot of us don't have that money. I don't even have, I'm not sure some of us have seen 2 million cash. But yes, I hope you've concluded your point on the registration.
Yeah, the registration.
Yeah, so now this operation, because allow me to sneak a peek at my Kenya here, and it tells me that this operation is called Linda Maji.
Lipa Maji. Operation
Linda Maji, Lipa Maji. So this is the second month?
Yes, this is the second month.
How has it been going?
Thank you, Olive. It's true. In conjunction with our parent ministry, the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation, the Water Services Regulatory Board, and our other partners, the water service providers, we, having recognized the seriousness of this problem of non-living water, we launched a program that was launched by the Principal Secretary for the State Department of Water and Sanitation, Dr. Kiprono Rono. Sometimes in February, I can confirm the date, we launched it at Prot 10 along Embakasi Road. Some guys and punched the main line to the airport and connected the apartments. And of course, the apartments were always having tenants because their water supply was 24/7, high pressure and so on, but they were not paying for this commodity. So we launched it and we went to Prot 7 and disconnected quite a number of connections with the support of the Nairobi County and the Nairobi City Water and Sewerage Company. And the operation is still going on. A number of disconnections have been made, a number of people have been arrested, and a number of people have been taken to court. Some have pleaded guilty, they paid the fines that I've talked about, and they have been directed to go and regularize their connections. So the operation is still ongoing in Nairobi, and we have, cascaded it, or we have expanded to the other counties. We launched it recently in Taita Taveta. In Voi, quite a number of disconnections were done. We have entered into memorandum of understanding in Machakos with the Machakos County that was signed between the PS, State Department of Water and Sanitation, and the Governor Machakos, sometimes in February. The same was done in Kitui. The same was done in Kericho and Bomet. And we are moving on. We are looking at those counties, particularly the ones with high percentage of non-living water. And we shall go to the bottom of this matter until each and every Kenyan really pays for the service that they are receiving and not live at the expense of the other Kenyans. So the focus is to reduce that loss so that we are able to recoup that investment and expand the service so that we can first of all close the gap, and thereafter then there would be equity in the provision of water services. Okay. So the program is still on. We have launched a toll-free number, and we are appealing to every Kenyan to report to any water service provider if they get to know of any illegal connection, or report to us through a toll-free number, which I will share with you and you can put in the screen as we progress. All
right, you can share it with me. Nitairusha na WhatsApp to my producer. but I also have, I think I have it already with my phone. Mabel, we have that number. Maybe we can share it on the tag 0800 721 760. Yes. I have been adequately armed. But
there is also an email number.
Yes, NRW monitoring.
Yes.
Okay, NRW monitoring at wasreb.go.ke. But if and before I get into the disease burden, and if there's a direct correlation between sanitation and cleanliness, you know, they say cleanliness is next to godliness. There's something you said about Plot 10, and at the risk of divulging my age, remember there was a TV show called Plot 10, but I'm looking at this, and most of the illegal connections, according to my notes, are said to be found in lower income areas, such as Githurai, Zimmerman, Kasarani, Mwiki, Kiamaiko, Huruma, Kariobangi, Mathare North, and Kayole, as well as Tasia, Babadogo, Embakasi, which you've mentioned, Kware Ward, and Imara Daima. What is it about these areas?
If I can say those are the areas that we have already discovered. Maybe the people there are proactive and they were ready to share information, but that does not mean that these illegal connections are not in the affluent areas. So we continue to encourage Kenyans to report, and we shall treat the information anonymously. And the focus in that area, I think the mere fact that the population is high in those areas, and there are all kinds of people living in those areas, good people, bad people. So the good people happen to be more than the bad people, and therefore they volunteered the information. So in the other areas, we are still following closely, and we hope we will be able to catch up with them soon.
So is this evidence of an infrastructure problem? Because I was scrolling through my YouTube the other day, and a fellow station, Citizen TV, had talked about high-rise slums. But Leila Mohammed had done something similar in the Kilimani area, and the residents there were complaining about a lot of high-rises are coming up, but it's not, they're not going up in tandem with accessibility to water and sewage systems. That infrastructure is not growing at the same pace as these high-rises. So is this evidence of an infrastructure problem, last mile, to borrow from the electricity sector? Is it a last mile problem, or is this watu wananyonga maji? Because I think this I can best express in Kiswahili. Watu wananyonga maji ndo wauze.
I think the demand of water and the supply, I would say, would be the main reason for that. There are so many people. If you look at those areas, they are densely populated. Whereas, as others have found out, there is no major infrastructure upgrade in those areas in the first 20 years or more. And therefore the same small pipeline, let's say a 4-inch pipe, which was supplying maybe 100,000 people in 1990, is still the same one supplying maybe 1 million people today. So what does that, what opportunity does that provide? Scarcity comes in as a threat, and therefore, because of that scarcity, people will develop, or innovatively, in the wrong way, look for ways of getting the commodity. To me, I would attribute it to that. So lack of investment commensurate with the population growth. So is that being addressed? Yes, it is being addressed now. There are a number of projects that are in place. The Northern Corrector, I'm sure you must be quite familiar with this. We hope before the end of this year we'll be able to add more water to Nairobi. The Karimino 2 Dam, it's already ready, and it's going to add more supply to Nairobi and Kiambu County, and therefore the pressure will be released a little bit, but we are not yet there. And there is also a lot of focus now on the last mile connectivity and improving the infrastructure in those areas. I'm sure you've driven around Nairobi and you've seen big pipes being laid in some areas. That's the focus of the national government at the moment. And from the regulatory point of view, we have around the water service providers some small amount of money for investment. so that they can quickly do those fixes and, expand the network in a small way as they wait for those mega projects to be completed. Thank you.
All right, you told us, Dr. Kemunto, to boil our water, but that involves fuel, right? Because I need either my gas or my charcoal or my to be ungreen firewood. It involves fuel. It's expensive. Is there a direct correlation usually between the disease burden and levels of sanitation, cleanliness, and also accessibility?
Yes. So 100% there is a direct relation between the disease burden of these waterborne diseases, I'd call them that, with the level of sanitation and the degree of supply of this clean and safe water, and to some extent the area where these people are. Because you'll find that what I've observed from the hospitals is that the most affected people with this diarrheal diseases, this waterborne diseases, are people from the informal settlements. And I think it has a lot to do with the economic status to some extent, which in a sense will directly impact their accessibility to clean and safe water. It also involves the way, just the way he said, like they live in highly concentrated populations, like they're very congregated. So you'll find where people have a lot of person-to-person contact, interactions, there's a lot of transfer and transmissibility of these diseases. And the problem with these diseases is that they affect the children under 5 mostly, though you'll still find it in adults, but the effect is seen more in these younger ones, mainly because of their immune systems. And then also this bacteria, viruses, parasites, they're usually very virulent, and they spread easily in children because you'll find them interacting a lot with each other. So just as you've said, the level of sanitation and hygiene practices determines a lot on the disease burden. So I think we should focus a lot on education of these people, because you'll find, again, people living in these informal settlements, they're not very aware of the health impact of their practices, or then they don't really give value to this. So I think education is a very big aspect which will influence your behavior. So we are working more on behavioral changes, and it will come from the community. But this has to go hand in hand with provision of clean and safe water and environmental sanitation, because one can't do without the other. Yeah.
All right, so we have a few minutes to go. So just your last word on this subject, Dr. Julius.
On the sanitation.
The illegal water connections.
Okay.
And just for our knowledge, these water police, do they have a uniform?
Yes, they are uniformed police. In fact, right as we speak, my principal secretary, State Department of Water and Sanitation, is plugging off some vehicles to the rural counties for the water police at Maji House. I hope you'll be covering it.
I would presume so.
So looking at what I sent you, the water police, after getting into this major problem of non-living water and the roles that is involved, the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation, Cabinet Secretary, and the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Government Coordination found it fit to establish a fully fledged police unit for water. And this was launched by Honorable CS for Interior, Professor Kindiki, on the 30th of January. And the Honorable Ariso Waome, the CS for water and sanitation was out of the country then and was represented by the Principal Secretary, Dr. Kiprono. So they are in uniform, they are police like any other police.
Also, they are drawn from the National Police Service.
They are drawn from the National Police Service.
Now with a special mandate.
With a special mandate.
Understood.
The same way we have the tourism police, anti-terror police. So water has reached to that level. It has attracted the attention of the national government, and therefore it will not really be business as usual. The police are out there investigating and, protecting the infrastructure to avoid a situation where we expose our citizens to the kind of challenges that Dr. has described. The moment you punch that pipeline to do an illegal connection, many people don't do it professionally. So in the process, other impurities get into the system. And that is what causes the water, contamination.
So that's vandalism.
That's vandalism. That is vandalism. And even as you do your illegal connection, the way they do it, they are not as professional as those who are really trained to punch those margarines and fix a connection. So they leave some, some risks. And when there is no water, of course there is pressure. Whatever comes around will be sucked. And unfortunately, given our sanitation situation, if it happens to be in an area where there is a sewer system running through, or maybe in those informal settlements where there is even no safe sanitation, then you know what to expect in that pipeline. And at the end of the day, when that water, which is safely managed, is transmitted through that pipeline, it gets automatically contaminated. And when we consume it, we suffer the consequences, which is very, very unfortunate. So what we would encourage is that we get safely managed water from the water companies that are accredited, and those other vendors who are, trading with the commodity water to make sure that they are registered, their sources are known, and that their water is also tested and confirmed to be safe for human consumption.
Okay.
So coming back to the issue of non-revenue water, we are in collaboration and we are urging everybody in this country. We are calling upon each and every citizen and every person of goodwill to support this initiative. The police are on, water services, regulatory services are on, the water companies are on, the Ministry of Water and Sanitation and Irrigation are on, cannot achieve the desired results. So the appeal is to each and every one of us to pray our citizen law, we behave responsibly, and at the end of the day, we'll be able to get water for all, as it is envisaged in our Vision 2030.
All right.
Yeah.
And Dr. Kemunto, your call to action as we close?
I will say, I think based on the recent events, people are now more aware of the serious health implications that unsanitary water, contaminated water can have on the community. So let's be vigilant in terms of the water we consume and the water we use, as well as let's work together with the regulatory boards to ensure that all of us are getting access to safe and safe water to avoid such events. And I think once we do that, we'll see a drop in these outbreaks that we've been having recently. From last year, I think we've been having so many cholera, many of these gastrointestinal diarrheal diseases. So let's take this seriously and be aware of the water we are consuming.
All right. Yeah. And Wastreb is asking for your help. Yes, you. And I'll just share that toll-free number and email address again quickly as I close. And where has it disappeared to? Give me a quick second. Pull it up. It is 0800 721 760, 0800 721 760, and or you can email if that is more convenient, nrwmonitoring@wasreb.go.ke. I assume these people are safe to anonymously submit this information. Okay. And this morning I have had with me on Your World Dr. Julius Kirimi Itunga. He is the Acting Chief Executive Officer, Water Services Regulatory Board, WASREB, and Dr. Loreen Kemunto, Medical Officer, Hospital. Thank you both for being here. Now I know who to call on. Should I intend, and I do intend, to progress this conversation forward. Thank you so very much, and thank you so very much for joining us on Your World. We are keeping an eye as the Nation Media Group on events happening across the country. We have our eye on Shakahola. Those autopsies having commenced yesterday, or probably slightly before, because 10, I think 10 were reported yesterday. And we're also keeping an eye on the Maandamano that was promised today. But as I said, there is a bipartisan committee meeting that was scheduled for today, and they will be addressing the press at 10 a.m. So we'll have that for you as well. That's it for me. My name is Olive Barrows. Good morning.